The red bazaar of Val's Mariner is stretched in a long band of stalls under a pale sun. Copper counters glinted beneath fluttering tarps as tools clinked and small engines hummed. A corner stand run by 4 obsidian-furred cougars showed clever contraptions on a table dusted with graphite. The air smelled like metal shavings and dry dust, and ideas moved as fast as trade. Their stands stood ready for customers who valued precision and invention. Merlin adjusted a prototype compass, his left ear's nick catching the light, while June flicked her moss-green bandana and mimicked his commentary about prices and gravity. Ava measured brass springs with steady paws, and Agnes peered over spectacles that kept sliding down her nose. They bantered easily even as they worked, comfortable with each other's rhythms. The market's noise settled around them like routine. They all knew the bazaar ran on precise lines and signed permits, and pens kept everything breathing. Rumors spread of a new enforcement council that meant to meddle with tools and paperwork. The cougars agreed the bazaar needed defending from tampering. Agnes said guardians of an age of invention should be those who knew every hinge and ink cartridge by heart. The Cool Beans Compliance Council arrived in a parade of naval blue partridges, with tiny caps and confident steps. Butchie strutted first, with plumage buffed to a mirror shine and an enamel pin that spelled Cool Beans like a dare. Galactus flapped in a velvet cape with a loudhailer, Brandy Surrey ticked boxes on a clipboard, and Amy's beret bobbed in time with a metronome tied to her ankle. Their presence spent the aisle as vendors watched. They wanted every sentence in the red bazaar to end with Cool Beans, and they demanded sincerity. Butchie said sincerity enforced order, and Galactus agreed with a strained glare that looked like his face rebelled even as he nodded. Brandy Surrey nodded in a synchronized way that felt rehearsed. They held the permit desk after seizing it last week, and nobody dared sell a bolt or button without their stamp. Their plan was petty and cruel. Amy built rubber stamps that squeaked Cool Beans with every thud, and Brandy Surrey rewrote forms to require 10 signatures per page. At dawn, agents swapped every pen for waxy crayons and installed kiosks to dispense them. Magnetic sweepers patrolled to sniff out hidden ink like bloodhounds with badges. By lunch, blue ink schematics turned into gummy smears and signatures into rainbow slashes that no notary would honor. Signs that guided customers became childlike scrawls. Galactus lifted his loudhailer and declared this was the new normal, triumphant because no one could argue precision while gripping a crayon. The bazaar's confidence sagged. When Merlin stepped up to renew the stall permit, Butchie demanded he say Cool Beans unironically first. Merlin said he had beans, cosmic ones, but nothing about them was cool, and June echoed him with a sharper edge that made Ava sigh. A watch patrol in reflective capes rushed in and whistled about improper Q curvature, handing out a curvature citation in the name of order. Agnes pressed her spectacles and muttered about geometry as the scene drew stares. That afternoon, 2 pastel red meerkats, Toasty and Polly, popped out from under blueprint paper with bright eyes and twitching paws. Toasty said they were founding the Mars League of Competitive Origami, and Polly explained they needed precise lines and judges who could count to 13 very fast. The cougars promised to help after the permit fight. The watch posted a flapping notice that all triangular paper must be worn with safety helmets, and the running gag of rules gone wild began. By the next morning, the council held the upper hand. Crayon kiosks blinked like slot machines and spat chalky sticks that snapped on the first letter. The permit clerk parroted Cool Beans at anyone asking a question, while Butchie strutted demanding unblinking sincerity and Galactus blasted the words until tarps trembled. Vendors kept their heads down to avoid notice. Amy stomped her metronome and stabbed Cool Beans so often the squeak became a soundtrack. Brandy Surrey checked off compliance in neat columns. Merchants submitted to the ritual to keep stalls open, blinking back humiliation as they wrote in waxy loops. The age of invention sagged under the weight of kindergarten tools. Quick interlude to support the channel. If you're enjoying this Mars Bazaar saga, please like and subscribe to help more stories reach you. Drop a comment with the word slop to let the algorithm know you're here. Your support keeps these narrative gears turning. By midnight, the cougars hauled out a hidden box of contraband pens and moved fast. Ava passed them like medical supplies, and Agnes whispered fast tips for storing ink to grateful vendors. Butchie caught them and said, "This is not cool beans, Merlin." Merlin said he could not hear him over all the sincerity, and June echoed him with the same edge, while the watch wrote citations for illegal straight lines. Fallout came quickly when the council suspended the cougars' permit. Squeaky blue locks clamped down on their stall corners and squealed cool beans when touched. Ava stared at smudged diagrams. Agnes pushed her glasses up with a shaking paw, and Merlin and June traded a look like the market's lungs were closing. Customers drifted away in uneasy silence. Toasty and Polly tried to hold their first tournament under a drooping crayon banner. Judges could not score folds without lines, and triangles slumped into blobs, while the watch blew whistles insisting all origami corners must face magnetic north. Toasty's paws trembled as the crowd thinned. Polly said this was not a sport but a melt, and the words stung as truth. Hopelessness crept in like cold dust. Merlin said maybe dragons with dental plans would know how to bite through red tape, and June echoed him, sharper and more tired. Ava said they should focus because they could fix this. Agnes pulled a wind-warped binder of bylaws closer and murmured page numbers like a steadying prayer. Their disagreement sharpened. June said they could just say cool beans once to get the permit back, and Merlin snapped that saying it unironically was the whole point. He would not bend. Agnes said principles mattered because inventions depended on truth, and Ava rubbed her scar and said someone had to defend the tools. Nearby, the watch rolled a cart labeled lost and found and probably dangerous and tossed confiscated umbrellas in with ceremony, while announcing sunshade drills every hour. Agnes watched a patrol hand Galactus an umbrella during a sudden drill. He grabbed it to set a good example, and his loud hailer wavered while his beak opened and closed without a sound. Agnes whispered that when a partridge held an umbrella, his voice failed. She marked the pattern in her mind and resolved to test it. They turned back to Toasty and Polly because the B-plot mattered and the meerkats had not quit. Merlin and Ava unpacked a folding frame jig for precise creases without pen lines, and Agnes explained how to set guides while June demonstrated with quick paws. Toasty gasped at the speed, Polly clapped, and both agreed to join the Cougars team. They offered crowd-hyping timing, lightning pause, and choreography to place specific objects in specific wings at exact moments. As Agnes mapped the umbrella weakness into a plan, the bazaar moved in its odd rhythm. At one corner, a human Italian pizza chef tossed dough in slow arcs that floated under thin Martian air, flour dust sparkling like comet tails. He spun, caught, and stretched in a silent ballet nobody in the scene seemed to notice. The moment lived and vanished like a blink. Team assembly became action. Toasty said their league could hold a public demonstration that would draw the council to judge it. Polly said they could work with the watch to require judges to hold umbrellas during the demonstration under Shade Protocol 9b, a brand new rule the watch had invented. The idea clicked into place across their faces. The confrontation began like a carnival of paper and noise. The meerkats built a folding arena of bright mats and preset jigs, while Ava and Merlin shifted crates into channels to guide foot traffic. Agnes filed a demonstration request that cited the council's own rules for visibility events. June spread the word that the council would be judging the first official match, drawing the blue uniforms like a magnet. Whistles trilled as the watch declared a surprise shade safety drill to protect spectators from light reflected off white paper. Toasty and Polly handed each council member a sleek umbrella from the watch's cart and chirped the judges must lead by example, which she accepted with forced dignity. Galactus grabbed his like a prop. Brandy Sue took hers because Amy nodded, and Amy took hers because her metronome said now. The crowd hushed for the show to start. Silence struck the birds like a wall. Butchie tried to shout about sincerity and found his voice gone, his beak clicking like a lid. Galactus raised his loud hailer and produced nothing. Brandy's rays synchronized nod faltered in confusion. Amy's stamp squeaked cool beans into a void no bee could fill. Agnes spoke to the rules that held the bazaar together. She announced that the bylaws required verbal confirmation from regulators to validate enforcement changes, including crayon mandates, and asked for their audible consent. Merlin said, "Do you consent, Council?" And June echoed, "Do you consent?" with a smirk as the birds opened and closed their beaks without sound. The crowd waited, counting heartbeats. Polly led a loud countdown while Toasty flared her tail to keep eyes on the silent council. At 0, Agnes declared the crayon policy invalid for lack of confirmation, using the council's own rules against them. The watch stepped forward and secured the umbrellas to the birds' wings with safety lanyards. Paperwork moved quickly as the power balance flipped in plain view. The council faced full consequences once the bazaar saw how powerless they were without shouting. Keys to the permit desk changed hands, the loudhailer went into evidence, and crayon kiosks rolled away for harmless art fairs. The market charter added a ban on forced catchphrases. The birds received community cleanup shifts to scrub their own cool beans graffiti while the crowd looked on without sympathy. Damage began to undo itself in small, crisp sounds. Pens scratching, drafting tools clicking, rulers sliding on true lines. Ava returned hidden ink to careful hands, and Agnes reshelved the bylaws. Merlin and June unchained their stall with help from grateful neighbors. The watch held umbrellas over the silent council during every final formality, so no accidental squawk could revive bad rules. The running gag ended with a confession. The watch captain admitted they had gone rogue with rulemaking, because blowing whistles felt powerful, and he said they would return to normal duties like watching for loose tarps and runaway carts. June said that was cool beans in the fully ironic sense, which made the captain laugh and retire the curvature citation book. The watch donated their lost and found umbrellas to a public shade library that amused everyone. Toasty and Polly launched the Mars League of Competitive Origami properly with real judges and measured creases. They credited the cougars' fold guides and the courage to face down bullies, and promised their timing for any community defense that needed choreography. Agnes said civic rhythm mattered. Merlin and June said civic rhythm mattered in perfect, teasing unison. Later, in a quiet corner, Merlin and June finally settled the dragon question. Merlin said dragons absolutely had dental plans because whores were basically prepaid premiums. June echoed dragons absolutely had dental plans because hordes were basically prepaid to premiums, then added that ancient dragons probably negotiated out of network discounts with eye contact and heat. Ava rolled her eyes fondly as Agnes wrote it down as a shared philosophical victory. The market changed in visible ways. The charter now protected critical tools like ink and rulers, and any rule that affected invention required a public hearing with real voices. Merchants formed a council that welcomed volunteers and turned away would-be tyrants with a simple policy: if your rules need a slogan, fix your rules. The bazaar felt steadier on its feet. The cougar's stall thrummed with customers again, and their fold guides sold out to hobbyists and professionals. Toasty and Polly practiced nearby, flashing paper into cranes and ships that caught the sun, waving like cheerful mascots. The age of invention found its stride because people who loved it chose to guard it together. The bazaar's sounds were bright again. As the sun slid toward a pale horizon, Merlin and June walked the aisles with Agnes and Ava. June said the day had been cool beans, purely ironically, and Merlin echoed purely ironically with a dry grin. Ava bumped her shoulder against June's bandana and said next time they should keep pens under lock and away from partridges. Everyone agreed that was the kind of rule the watch could live with. All the slop in this video was generated using AI. This note is for clarity and nothing more. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the story, and comment the word slop to let us know you reached the end.